Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. This is the show where we talk about faith, family, politics, unity, and whatever else is on my mind. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important subject for American society and for the rest of the world to a great extent, and that's Black people, Black America. Anyone that hasn't been living under a rock knows that Black America is in crisis. My guest today has done a lot of thought about Black people. I'm interviewing a well-known journalist, a sports journalist, Jason Whitlock. He is with Outkick. And we're going to talk about the Black culture, religion, and just how progressives are using Black people at this point in history. And so help me to welcome Jason Whitlock to Conversations. Thank you, Jason. I am so honored to have you on the show today.
I'm honored to be here, Carol. Thank you so much.
You know, Jason, you are very brave, I would say, as a Black man to devote yourself to speaking honestly about the plight of our race. And when I say this, I don't want people to get upset because there's one race, the human race, but we've been divided into little groups. And so the Black group seems to be having a lot of trouble. They've had trouble throughout American history, but from my perspective, we're going backwards.
Yeah, I definitely think we're headed the wrong direction. And I think anybody that has an understanding of the African American journey, what's most concerning for me is that we are walking away from our religious faith.
Yes.
That's why I think we're headed the wrong direction. And I don't think at any other point in American history have we been headed the wrong direction until now. And so, look, obviously you go back 300-400 years, we were brought here and put into crisis, but our journey, our path was always headed the right direction. And our faith, our religious faith, had been our foundation, our rock, our salvation, and we're walking away from it right now, Dr. Swain, and it's disconcerting and concerning for me.
You are really speaking my language, because if you look at just American history, just how the Black church itself, even in the inner city, the ghettos, during the worst part of American history, that is what held people together. And what seems to be happening today is the progressive agenda, which is tied to Marxism. That is a very anti-God agenda. And, you know, through the colleges and universities, we educated a lot of Black people, but we miseducated them. And as a consequence, you know, they have a chip on their shoulders. They go back to their communities and they carry the wrong message. And you're a lot younger than I am. I was born in 1954. That was the year of the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision that desegregated schools all across America. And I watched desegregation take place. That was during the era when systemic racism was real. And what happened after that, we saw the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1968 Open Housing Act. Opportunities opened up for people like me. And even though I was a high school dropout, teen mom, I was able to get an education, earn 5 college and university degrees, become a professor. And all we wanted at that time was an equal opportunity. We wanted discrimination to end. And today, when Black people have never had it better, we are going backwards. What happened?
Well, there's the miseducation piece that you talked about previously is, I think young Black people don't even understand what America promises. And so America promises freedom and opportunity. That's it. And so once those laws go off the book that you lived through in the 50s and 60s, once those laws go off the book, it's like, well, now you actually have the government and the laws are backing your opportunity for freedom and opportunity. That's all America promises. It doesn't promise love. And so if you're looking for love, and that's what I see from a lot of this younger generation through Black Lives Matter, if white liberals would just love us, if America would just love us, things would be so perfect. America doesn't promise that. God promises that.
Well, this other thing is, the civil rights movement was about non-discrimination and equal opportunity, and it was very principle-based. What they're pushing for now through the political left is not really based on principles. Like what the left seems to be pushing for is reverse discrimination, because white people did all these things to us, centuries ago. It's time for us, to get back what we deserve. And they are the ones that have to be humiliated. They are the ones that have to bow down to us.
To me, it's borderline satanic or evil, because again, once you start asking people to look for love outside of God or perhaps their mother, your mother can give you unconditional love. But it's like if white people would love us, we've made them our God. That's my problem, and we're looking for them for solutions that God empowered us to take care of. Once America gave us freedom and opportunity, America has done its job. We have to take advantage of this freedom and opportunity and quit looking for others to solve our problems. Young people have been miseducated.
Love, it sounds like you referring to that Beats commercial, Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
But do you love us? But do you love us? But do you love us? That is so ridiculous. And what bothers me about it is that it portrays black culture as if it's black inner city, almost borderline thug culture. That is how they say that's who we are, rather than people who are successful, who are achieving things. That is what is dismaying.
We now, instead of worshiping God, we worship skin color. We've been convinced that our skin color is our most valuable asset and our defining characteristic. Who did that to us? If you go back 400 years, slave owners said your most defining characteristic, your defining asset is your skin color. And so here we are in 2020, and white progressives and liberals and Hollywood and pop culture has convinced black people that our skin color is our defining characteristic, our most important asset. It's a mistake.
It's absolutely a mistake. We're going to take a break, and after this word from our sponsor, we'll continue this conversation with Jason Whitlock.
Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain is made possible by Cooper Steel, a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Cooper Steel believes in sponsoring Carol Swain because we believe, as she does, you build strong, you stand strong.
What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles. Cooper Steel is committed to excellence, responsibility, and community. Cooper Steel's motto is, build strong, stand strong. They treat their employees and customers like family. Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. Learn more about our generous sponsor at coopersteel.com.
Welcome back. I'm here with my guest, Jason Whitlock. Jason, I don't know a lot about your story. Have you always been conservative? What kind of family were you raised in? And I see your passion and your love for America, because we're talking about black people and their wrong course in history, but it's bigger than that.
Well, for me, I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the greatest influences on my life, I would have to list my grandmother at the top of the list. She was the embodiment of Christian love and planted a seed of Christianity in me and my brother at a very young age. And and then my mom and dad, very influential in my life. My parents divorced when I was young, lived with my mom most of the time growing up. But then my senior year of high school, I moved in with my father. And at that time, my father had some tax problems and had his business taken from him. And so we lived in a 400 square foot, one bedroom apartment in the hood together in 1984. And my dad had an incredible influence on me. He was a Booker T. Washington, cast down your bucket.
All right.
And he never left the black community. Built a business, several businesses in the inner city, and eventually built a brand new home in the inner city. And he spent 2 or 3 years in the Army, which as a young adult, which kind of turned his life around in a different direction. And my brother, my uncles, they all spent time in the military. It was all instrumental in their life. I went to school on a football scholarship. And so was I always conservative? Probably, but I didn't know it because I'm not very political. Carol, my parents get upset with me, but I've never voted because I've never really trusted politicians.
Well, you can't trust politicians. We can only trust God. But I think that there are some people worth voting for. But your story is a powerful story. And the fact that your parents were involved, even though they were not together the whole time, sounds like your father had a great impact, which proves fathers are important.
No question. Both my parents very important. My mother, they were both. My mother was a factory worker. My dad started out a factory worker. My dad didn't even graduate high school, but my mother eventually took 2 jobs to move me and my brother out to a working class suburb. And my mother's work ethic, and just at that time, in the 1970s, she had a lot of courage, and she had an independent spirit, and she had things there were things she wanted to do with me and my brother that she did over the objections of a lot of people, and they paid off and worked. So I had remarkable parents. I had a remarkable grandmother, and I didn't know it as a young person, but I guess I was conservative. My values come from the church, and they come from my athletic experience, being a football player. And the church and football teach conservative values, and so that's where my conservative point of view comes from. It's not really political, it's just more common sense.
So Jason, football today, does it teach any conservative values, or has it, just like colleges and universities have been taken over by the students rather than the adults, is that the same with football? Who's really running the show?
Well, I think the actual playing of football still teaches conservative values, but all the things around it, particularly the television aspect of big-time NFL football or big-time college football, they've all been influenced by the left. There's been a takeover, and there's been an embrace of Black Lives Matter, which is in complete objection to the values that made football America's national pastime.
Right.
And so all of pop culture, but particularly sports culture, has been greatly influenced by the political left and by China and by globalism and Marxism, and just, it's been amazing what because I blame China for all of it. It's been amazing what they've been able to accomplish, the influence of American sports culture.
And one of the problems is that young people really don't know American history. They don't understand the importance of the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights. And I see ignorance among so many of our young people, not just Black people, but our society as a whole. And until we can get back to basics, educating people about our nation, we're going to have people that form alliances with China and other nations that are not about what's best for America. If we're going to avoid being a Marxist country, we have to change course. Right now, we're going to take a break. When we return, I want you to talk more about what you think needs to be done, because you are a person that can truly make a difference. You're doing it right now. So we'll be back after this word from our sponsor. Stick with us.
For those of you who would like to know what exactly our children are facing in their education system, this is a must-read book. It will equip you and prepare you to make decisions about your child's health, about your child's education. So I want to encourage every one of you to grab a copy of Dr. Swain's book and join with me and Carol on the front lines in this critical time to eradicate the liberal abduction of our children.
Cooper Steel is a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee. What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles. Cooper Steel's motto is, "Build strong, stand strong." Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain.
Welcome back to Conversations. I'm here with my guest, Jason Whitlock. Jason, there's so many problems in the Black community, and I know you've thought about these for a long time. Could you share with our audience just what you believe needs to be done?
Carol, I'm going to pick up on a point that you made before we went to break. We have to educate not just young people, but even older Black people on Marxism.
Right.
People don't get it. And I don't want to put my mother out there, but when I try to explain it to her, it goes over her head. She thinks, oh, Marxism, and I'm like, no, Mama, Marxism is hostile towards religion.
Oh, yes.
And if you understand what China and any communist-run country has traditionally done to Western civilization and America in particular, is they want to install a Marxist ideology within the culture and create this hostility towards religion. And I go, Mama, if you look and see why young people have abandoned the Black church, they've adopted a Marxist ideology, and we have to get people to understand Karl Marx's political theory, how socialism is the gateway drug, communism is the drug, and then Marxism is the full-blown disease.
Right. And do you know that they have been infecting the Black community since the founding of the NAACP, and they have slowly, made greater and greater inroads, so that now, during the 21st century, in our young people, we see that they have moved away from the church. They have embraced the LGBT agenda because that is big on a big goal for the progressive left. And President Obama, he was key to pushing that on the church. And so you see people engaging in behaviors that they're really focused on the wrong thing. They don't realize that for Black people, it's about survival. If you defund the police, your community has more crime than other communities. The crime is usually Black on Black. And so that means there's not going to be anyone there to help you when you have your need.
Dr. Swain, I think that we as African Americans do not understand, not fully, not really, how important we have been to America's successful journey over the last 300 or 400 years. And I try to, we look at America as if it's a tragic story for us. I look at it as like we are one of God's greatest miracles, and we're an uplifting story about look what this country did and overcame the evil that it rejected. And so once you understand that we are critical to the success of America, and we always have been, and we understand we have been America's moral conscience through our religious faith. And I think our enemies, China, Russia, any of the countries that the communists run or Marxist countries that want to bring us down, if they could break Black Americans' religious bonds, they can bring down America. America would no longer have a moral compass if we are detached from our religious faith. And I'm looking at it like, oh my God, they're doing it.
Well, here's what's happened. They've used white privilege and white guilt, and white people have reached the point where many of them are afraid to speak up. And so they are allowing themselves to be bullied, their children to be bullied, and all of this supposedly in the name of diversity and equity. and it is destroying America. And the only thing I believe that can save us is to go back to our founding principles, go back to the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, non-discrimination. And so all of these things are important. And Jason, you are doing great work. And I want our viewers to be able to follow the work that you're doing, through Outkick, and you live in Nashville now, and I'd like to have you back on this show.
Carol, no problem. Would love to come back. Appreciate the conversation and the opportunity to speak to your audience, and want to be supportive and help you grow your audience.
Thank you.
I feel like I moved to Nashville for a reason, and as I meet people like yourself and Maurice Fitzgerald and Steve Ford and just so many people I've met here in Nashville that have wrapped their arms around me, Nashville feels like home.
Thank you. It is home. We're going to go to a break, and when we return, I will have some closing comments.
Demands for political correctness and mandatory race and gender diversity training have placed onerous burdens on businesses, churches, and nonprofits. Learn how to improve relations by educating your team with principle-based training that brings people together rather than driving wedges between them. Unity Training Solutions helps your organization build strong teams by respecting and harnessing individual talent, achieving your goals by providing viable alternatives to the divisive and counterproductive critical race and gender theories is our mission. Our expert facilitators and consultants bring greater harmony to workplaces and educational institutions by respecting everyone's civil rights and equality under the law. We encourage Americans to rediscover and re-embrace our national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. A few of our core values and principles include no hidden agendas, respecting the differences of others. Our citizens share more similarities than differences, and trusting in the traditional principles of hard work, integrity, and accountability. Our seminars are geared towards your organization, educational, business, corporate, as well as churches and nonprofits. Want to know more about how to strengthen your team? Knowledge is power. You can learn more about Unity Training Solutions at unitytrainingsolutions.com.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Conversations. There's so many important issues that involve faith, family, politics, and unity that need to be addressed by people who love America. So we hope that you tune in each week, that you will share our show, and that you will work with us to make America the great nation it has always been. It doesn't have to be a nation in decline. And so until next week, I look forward to seeing you and wishing you the best.